The joint is perfectly aligned, the second medic announced, his voice filled with disbelief. No trauma indicators. No inflammation. No tissue damage. It's as if the displacement never occurred. That's impossible, the lead medic said flatly. Joint displacement correction requires precise calibration, controlled environment, and extensive post-procedure monitoring. What equipment did you use? Marcus held up his hands. Just these. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then, the lead medic did something that surprised everyone. He began to laugh. It was a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful and utterly incongruous with the situation. Fascinating, he said finally. Absolutely fascinating. In 300 years of practice, I have never seen anything like this. You accomplished in seconds what would take our team hours to achieve, and with better results. Word of the incident spread through the university like wildfire. By the time Marcus made it back to his dormitory, his communication device was flooded with messages from students, faculty, and even some off-world researchers requesting interviews. Dr. Vexnari, the university's chief medical officer, was a being of impressive credentials and even more impressive tentacles. Her office, located in the medical complex's highest tower, offered a panoramic view of the university's sprawling campus. Marcus sat in a chair that had been hastily modified. For human physiology, facing what he was beginning to suspect was more than a casual inquiry. Mr. Chun, Dr. Vexnari began, her voice carrying the measured tones of someone accustomed to delivering serious diagnoses. I need to understand exactly what happened in the recreational facility. Around the room, several other faculty members observed the proceedings. Professor Haltith was there, along with Dr. Kornfick from the xenobiology department, and someone Marcus didn't recognize, a tall, imposing figure whose species he couldn't identify. I already explained to the medical team, Marcus said, starting to feel like he was in trouble. Kexthara dislocated his shoulder, and I put it back in place. It's really not that complicated. Not complicated, Dr. Vexnari repeated, consulting her holographic display. Mr. Chun, what you describe is not complicated, is a level 7 medical procedure requiring specialized equipment and years of training. Yet our scans show that you achieved perfect joint alignment with no tissue damage whatsoever. Maybe Vorthani anatomy is just similar to human anatomy? Marcus suggested. Dr. Quan Thick, whose multiple eyes blinked in sequence when he was thinking, spoke up. We've conducted extensive studies on Vorthani physiology. Their joint structure is actually more complex than human anatomy, with additional stabilizing ligaments that should make manual manipulation impossible. The unknown figure finally spoke, his voice carrying a strange electronic undertone. Mr. Chun, I am Administrator Zixpal from the Galactic Council's Human Assessment Division. We've been monitoring your species since first contact, and this incident has raised some questions. Questions? Marcus was definitely starting to feel like he was in trouble now. About human capabilities, Administrator Zixpal continued. Your species' initial assessments classified you as moderately intelligent, but physically unremarkable. However, this incident suggests we may have underestimated your practical medical knowledge. Dr. Vexnari manipulated her display, showing a complex chart that meant nothing to Marcus. We've reviewed the medical records of all 12 human students. 7 of you have performed what we would classify as emergency medical procedures during your time here. Simple procedures, by your standards, but each one would require extensive training and equipment for any other species. Are you saying we're in trouble? Marcus asked directly. On the contrary, Professor Haltith interjected. His tentacles moving in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of excitement. We're saying you're remarkable. Your species has developed practical medical knowledge that surpasses our theoretical understanding in certain areas. Administrator Zixpal leaned forward. Mr. Chun, we need to understand. Is this knowledge common among your people? Marcus thought about it. I mean, yeah, most people know basic first aid. How to stop bleeding, set a broken bone, handle dislocations. We learn it in school, or from family, or just from experience. Experience, Dr. Quanthik repeated, his eyes blinking rapidly. You learn through direct exposure to medical situations? Sure. I mean, on the farm, animals get hurt all the time. People get hurt. You learn to deal with it, or you call someone who knows how. It's not really formal training. It's just ... life. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus could see the beings around him processing this information, and he was starting to realize that what he considered normal might be anything but normal in the galaxy at large. 3 days after the incident, Marcus found himself in the largest lecture hall on campus, facing an audience that included not just students, but faculty, researchers, and what appeared to be official representatives from multiple worlds. The crowd was unprecedented, over 2,000 beings from across the galaxy, all there to learn about human primitive medicine. Kexthara sat in the front row, his massive form a reassuring presence. Over the past few days, Vorthani had become something of a celebrity himself, the living proof of human medical capabilities. Beside him, the other human students looked as bewildered as Marcus felt. Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings, Professor Haltith announced, his tentacles weaving an elaborate pattern of formal introduction. Today, we witness a paradigm shift in our understanding of practical medicine. Dr. Vexnari stepped forward, her multiple arms manipulating a complex holographic display. Our investigation into human medical practices has revealed something extraordinary. What humans call first aid represents a level of practical medical knowledge that most species in our galaxy have never developed. The display showed comparative charts that made Marcus's head spin. The average human possesses intuitive understanding of anatomy, trauma response, and emergency treatment that would require decades of formal education in most of our civilizations. But why? The question came from Dr. Solendra, whose scales had shifted to a deep blue of curiosity. Why do humans develop this knowledge? Marcus stood up, feeling the weight of 2,000 alien gazes upon him. Because we have to, he said simply. Earth is, well, it's kind of a dangerous place. Things go wrong a lot. People get hurt. Animals get hurt. You learn to deal with it, or people die. Your world is dangerous? Administrator Zix Paul asked, his electronic voice carrying surprise. Well, yeah, Marcus continued, warming to the topic. We've got predators, poisonous plants, extreme weather, natural disasters, diseases. I mean, most of human history has been about surviving in a hostile environment. We've always had to be tough and resourceful. A murmur rippled through the audience. Marcus could see beings frantically taking notes, their various forms of communication, creating a symphony of academic excitement. This explains the anomaly, Dr. Quanthik announced, his multiple eyes blinking in rapid sequence. Most species in our galaxy evolved on worlds that were either naturally benign or were made safe through technological development. We've never had to develop the kind of practical survival knowledge that humans consider routine. Pip raised a tiny paw. Are you saying that humans are accidentally more capable than most of us? Not more capable, Professor Haltith corrected gently. Differently capable. Your species has developed remarkable practical knowledge through necessity, while we've developed theoretical knowledge through leisure. Dr. Vexnari stepped forward again. Which brings us to our proposal. The Galactic Council has approved the establishment of a new department, Practical Emergency Medicine, with Earth serving as the primary research and training world. The announcement caused an uproar. Marcus could see beings across the auditorium, reacting with excitement, concern, and what appeared to be a healthy dose of fear. Furthermore, Administrator Zix Paul added, his voice cutting through the noise. "We're requesting that all human students in the exchange program serve as instructors in this new department. Your practical knowledge could save countless lives." Across the galaxy, Marcus looked at his fellow humans, seeing the same mixture of pride and bewilderment on their faces that he felt. They'd come to learn from advanced alien civilizations, only to discover that their own primitive knowledge was actually revolutionary. "There's one condition," Marcus said, standing up again. "We're not teachers. We're just people who've learned to deal with problems. If you want to learn from us, you'll have to be willing to get your hands dirty and learn by doing, not just by reading about it." Dr. Vexnari's tentacles curled in what Marcus had learned was the equivalent of a smile. "Mr. Chun, I think that's exactly what we need to learn." As the assembly dissolved into excited chatter and planning sessions, Marcus found himself surrounded by beings eager to learn the mysterious art of human first aid. He caught Kexthara's eye and saw something that transcended species barriers: respect, gratitude, and the beginning of a friendship forged through shared experience. The galaxy, it turned out, had a lot to learn from a farm boy from Montana who just happened to know how to pop a shoulder back into place. The end author's note: this story explores themes of practical knowledge versus theoretical learning. Marcus Chun had always been the practical one in his family. Growing up on his grandmother's farm in rural Montana, he'd learned to fix everything from broken fence posts to injured livestock. Now, at 24, he found himself in the most surreal situation of his life, sitting in a lecture hall at the prestigious Kepler Interstellar University, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy. The Exchange Student Integration Program was humanity's first real attempt at interstellar education. After first contact 3 years ago, Earth had been invited to participate in the galaxy's premier academic institution. Marcus, with his agricultural engineering background and practical problem-solving skills, had somehow made the cut among the 12 humans selected. His classmates were a fascinating mix. ZEPH4471, a crystalline being from Andromeda's silicon-based civilization, sat rigid in his specially designed chair, his translucent blue form catching the artificial sunlight streaming through the bioluminescent ceiling. Beside him, Lyra Moonwhisper, yes, that was actually her name, represented the ethereal collective, her gossamer wings folded delicately as she took notes on her floating tablet. Then there was Kexthara, a being from the high-gravity world of Vorthon Prime, standing nearly 7 feet tall with an exoskeleton that looked like polished obsidian. He was the physical powerhouse of their study group. His species, the Vorthoni, were known throughout the galaxy for their incredible strength and endurance. Today we examine the principles of emergency response protocols across different physiological systems, Professor Haltiff announced, his tentacles dancing gracefully as he manipulated the holographic display. The elderly Aquarian's voice carried the weight of centuries of experience. Each species has developed unique approaches to crisis management based on their evolutionary needs. Marcus glanced around at his fellow students. The diversity was staggering. Pip-Pip, a small furry creature from the forest world of Ender. 7. Barely reached Marcus's waist, but possessed an intellect that could calculate hyperspace trajectories in his head. Dr. Salendra, a reptilian saurian pursuing her 3rd doctorate, had scales that shifted color based on her emotional state. Currently, a calm blue-green dot, the lecture continued with detailed analysis of medical protocols. But Marcus found his attention drifting to the practical applications. These beings were brilliant, no doubt, but everything seemed so theoretical. When Professor Haltiff described emergency response procedures that took hours to implement, Marcus couldn't help but think about the barn raising last summer when old Pete Morrison had dislocated his shoulder. It had him back to work in 5 minutes. "Mr. Chun," the professor's voice cut through his thoughts, Perhaps you could share Earth's approach to emergency medical response? Marcus straightened up, aware that all eyes and optical sensors and compound visual organs were focused on him. Well, sir, we tend to focus on immediate practical solutions first, then worry about the detailed analysis afterward. A ripple of what might have been confusion passed through the class. ZEPH4471's crystal form flickered slightly, his species equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Fascinating, Professor Hailtith murmured. Perhaps we'll have an opportunity to observe these practical solutions in action. Marcus had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. Asterisk, the recreational facility at Kepler University, was a marvel of interspecies engineering. Multiple gravity zones accommodated beings from worlds ranging from the gossamer light atmospheres of gas giants to the crushing pressures of super-Earth planets. Marcus had just finished his daily workout in the Earth normal section when he heard an unusual sound from the high-gravity zone, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to carry pain. He jogged over to find a crowd of students gathered around. Something, their various forms of communication, creating a cacophony of concern. Pushing through the group, Marcus saw Kexthara on the ground, his massive form curled in an uncharacteristic display of vulnerability. The Vorthani's exoskeleton was intact, but his left arm hung at an odd angle. Someone has activated the emergency medical protocol, Lyra announced, her musical voice pitched high with worry. The medical team will arrive in approximately 14 minutes. 14 minutes? Marcus knelt beside Kexthara, whose breathing was rapid and shallow. The alien's usual stoic demeanor had cracked, revealing genuine distress. It is my shoulder joint, Kexthara managed in his deep, gravelly voice. I believe it has been displaced during the strength training exercise. This is most concerning. Dr. Salenra's scales had shifted to a deep red of alarm. Displacement. Injuries are catastrophic for most species. The joint structure could be permanently damaged. We must wait for the medical team with their realignment equipment. Marcus looked at the gathered students, each representing advanced civilizations with technology that seemed almost magical to him. Yet here they were, standing helplessly around what appeared to be a simple dislocated shoulder. Has anyone actually looked at the injury? He asked, moving closer to Kexthara. ZEPH4471's crystal form pulsed with agitation. Physical examination without proper diagnostic equipment is extremely dangerous. We could cause additional trauma. May I? Marcus asked Kexthara directly, ignoring the gasps from the other students. The Vorthani's large eyes, usually a solid black, showed flecks of silver, apparently a sign of pain in his species. If you believe ... you can help ... Marcus gently examined the shoulder, his experienced hands probing the joint structure. Despite the alien anatomy, the basic biomechanics were surprisingly similar to human physiology. The shoulder had indeed dislocated, but cleanly, without apparent damage to the surrounding tissue. This is just a basic dislocation, Marcus announced, causing another wave of concerned chatter. I can fix this. Fix it? Pip's voice was barely a whisper. You mean repair the joint displacement? Yeah, it's not that complicated. Marcus positioned himself beside Kexthara, who, despite his pain, was watching with curious intensity. I'm going to need you to relax your arm completely. This might hurt for just a second, but then you'll feel much better. The other students backed away as if Marcus were about to perform some dangerous ritual. Dr. Salenra was frantically taking notes, her scales shifting through a spectrum of colors. Lyra had actually taken flight, hovering several feet above the scene. Are you certain about this? Kexthara asked, his voice tight with pain but trusting. I've done this plenty of times, Marcus replied, taking a firm grip on the alien's arm. My cousin Jake used to pop his shoulder out every football season. Ready? Before anyone could protest, Marcus smoothly manipulated the joint, using the leverage technique his high school coach had taught him. There was a distinct pop, and suddenly Kexthara's expression transformed from pain to amazement. The silence that followed was deafening. Kexthara slowly moved his arm, testing the range of motion. His exoskeleton, which had been dulled with pain, suddenly regained its lustrous shine. The pain. It is gone, he announced, his voice filled with wonder. Completely gone. The gathered students stared at Marcus as if he had just performed a miracle. Dr. Solenra's scales had gone completely white, apparently the saurian equivalent of shock. ZEPH 4471's crystal form was flickering rapidly, his species sign of extreme confusion. How? Lyra whispered, still hovering in the air. How is this possible? Marcus stood up, brushing off his hands. It's just a dislocated shoulder. The joint popped out of the socket, and I popped it back in. Pretty standard stuff. Standard? Pip's voice cracked. You just manipulated displaced joint architecture. Without imaging equipment. Without anesthesia. Without a sterile environment. Well, yeah, Marcus said, starting to realize that his casual approach might not be so casual to his classmates. I mean, it's not like it's surgery or anything. It's just first aid. The term first aid seemed to cause another wave of confusion. Several students were frantically consulting their translation devices, apparently having no equivalent concept in their languages. That's when the emergency medical team arrived. Team consisted of 3 beings Marcus had never seen before. Tall, elegant creatures with multiple arms and what appeared to be built-in medical scanners. They moved with the fluid precision of beings who had spent centuries perfecting their craft. Behind them floated an array of gleaming medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Where is the patient with the critical joint displacement? The lead medic asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life-and-death situations. Here, Kexthara said, waving his previously injured arm. But I am well. The medic's expression insofar as Marcus could read it shifted from professional concern to confusion. Well, the emergency alert indicated catastrophic joint displacement, requiring immediate intervention. It did, Dr. Solenra said, her scales still pale. But the human he? What did the human do? The medic asked, his tone suddenly sharp with concern. Marcus stepped forward. I just popped his shoulder back into place. It was dislocated, so I relocated it. No big deal. The medical team's reaction was immediate and dramatic. All 3 beings began speaking rapidly in their own language while scanning Kexthara with various devices. The readings on their equipments seemed to confuse them even more. Asterisk.